we had encountered mutants akin to specimen before. Attempts were made for similar enhancement, but did not take. I was convinced this time it would work. This wasn't a question of whether we could turn average citizen into warrior. No, this was whether we could make good soldier perfect. Today on the Comic Book Report, Ultimate Wolverine, Volume 1, The Winter Soldier, by Chris Condon and Alessandro Cappucchio, from Marvel Comics. Stick around and check it out. Greetings, bub. My name is Dominic, and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I am back in the world of Marvel's new Ultimate Universe, taking a look at a recently released paperback collection. Yes, this is Ultimate Wolverine Volume 1, which is to date the final Volume 1 in this new Marvel Ultimate Universe. To say that this was an awaited title for me would be an understatement. I love Wolverine. I was hearing pretty good things about this run, and now I am so stoked to finally be reviewing it for all of you. Now, before we dive into today's review, I would like to shout out our channel sponsor, Panel Bound Comics. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, I highly encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link to them in the video description, and if you see anything site-wide that you like, you can actually use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with today's trade paperback review. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this volume were written by Chris Condon, with art from Alessandro Cappucchio and Alex Linz. The issues in this volume were published by Marvel Comics beginning in 2025. The volume itself collects Ultimate Wolverine, the 2025 series, issues 1 through 6, and material from Ultimate Universe 1 Year In, issue 1. And finally, this is a standard size trade paperback collection with glossy print paper stock, a glued binding, and a total of 160 pages. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Alrighty, and here's our first dedicated look at the front cover for today's collection. It does have a uniformity with the other new Marvel Ultimate Universe paperbacks that have been releasing. We have this kind of white bordered, a little white number 1 in the upper right. Then we have the Marvel logo along the left, followed by the U symbolizing the new Ultimate Universe with the Wolverine scratches out of it this time. Ultimate Wolverine, the subtitle of the volume, The Winter Soldier, and some of the creators. And along the right, we of course have the image of the Ultimate Wolverine himself. Transitioning now to the spine, we have a lot of uniformity with the other releases in this line as well. We have the Marvel logo up top, the Ultimate U, the title Ultimate Wolverine, subtitle The Winter Soldier, the creators yet again. This time we have a little picture window at the very bottom, followed by a 1, signifying this volume 1. Again, this does have a really great spine, especially next to some of the other releases in the new Ultimate Universe. I'll try to throw a snapshot of that later in the video. Now, along the back, we do have a plain white background with some accolades and reviews up top. We have a cool scratched Wolverine logo, a little fun blurb about the collection, what it contains, creators, Marvel logo, pricing information, all that good stuff at the bottom. Again, pretty standard fare for the back of a trade paperback collection, and definitely in keeping with the kind of visual themes and graphic art we have with a lot of these new collections. Sparse, debatably minimalistic, but I do like the overall vibe. And now, as I like to do on these videos, a quick look at this book's binding. So as I mentioned at the top, it is a glued binding. I will say it laid down okay. There were brief moments of gutter loss where I had to push the pages down a tad, but nothing too critical. I want to say this is pretty standard for a lot of Marvel's trade paperback collections. Overall, no real complaints from me. It was solidly bound. And you'll get to take more looks at the binding as I flip through the collection in a moment. Before we jump into the actual book itself, though, I thought I'd show you this book along with the other Volume 1s and the event kicking all of this off, Ultimate Invasion, for this new Ultimate Universe. I've been eagerly awaiting this volume. I know that Marvel's planning to release all 6 of these books in a box set coming up in a month or two, I think, but I'm really eager to talk about this universe more extensively. I'm actually planning to do a retrospective of what I'm calling Phase 1 of this new Marvel Ultimate Universe, so if you're interested in seeing my thoughts on that and that video presented, definitely stay tuned in the coming weeks. And as I mentioned earlier, here's our snapshot or quick look at the spines of these editions. As you can see, a lot of uniformity here, and as a collector, I really enjoy it. Okay, and now as we make our way into the collection, we have some advertisements for some other books in the line, title page, things like that. We do have a little blurb or paragraph setting up what we need to know about this new Marvel Ultimate Universe to enjoy the title. We have our list of creators, publishing information, of course, in this front matter, and then we jump right into what I'm calling a prologue. Now, I'm not sure if this is the material from the 1 Year In one-shot or if this is from something else, but we do have a little prologue setting up the birth of this universe's Wolverine in a way. After we have that little couple page prologue that has some of the foundations of what happened to this character, we go into issue 1 directly. And we're introduced to Logan, Wolverine, but he is the Winter Soldier. He is not Weapon X in this universe. No, he has been taken and formed into a kind of sleeper agent known as the Winter Soldier that's dispatched on missions to assassinate or kind of play whatever political games those in charge deem worth it. I really liked this wrinkle, of course, being a fan of Ed Brubaker's time on Captain America and the Winter Soldier storyline in particular, the character of Winter Soldier. I knew when they wanted to make Logan, Wolverine, a Winter Soldier in this universe, I just thought that that was a perfect melding that would remix this character in some really unique ways, and so far I have to say I'm not disappointed. I will say overall it doesn't feel too dissimilar from his roots in Weapon X, which I also liked, but again, the added wrinkles of what he is in this program and who he is ultimately supposed to be serving I thought was fascinating. You might be wondering, can you just pick up this title without needing to read anything else in the Ultimate Universe? I would say overall you would probably be okay, especially with that nice paragraph or two at the beginning that set up the events in the world to appreciate this title. That being said, I think minimally reading Ultimate Invasion to see where the universe got its foundation and what the maker is up to would probably help give broader context. But yeah, I think that someone could pick up this trade paperback collection and probably be fairly okay if they want a different and kind of just interesting Wolverine title. To give that little bit of context, though, and to set up what we're going to have here in the story, I will just say a couple things. Essentially, the maker defected from the mainstream 616 Marvel Universe not too long ago and went into this universe, which I think might be 6160. At any rate, he went through time and basically stopped a lot of the heroes from getting their origin stories and becoming heroes, and he's kind of molded this world in his image where he can reign supreme. However, in the events of Ultimate Invasion, he's sort of imprisoned or trapped, and he's to be released, I think, within a year or two, and a lot of the Ultimate titles thus far to date have been kind of leading into his eventual return. In fact, I think that's where everything's beginning to bottleneck. Well, in that space where he is gone, we find this character of Wolverine. We basically have part of the world sort of run by a lot of the Maker's lieutenants, and there's a faction of them that are kind of ruled over by Colossus, Magic, and Omega Red. They basically have this cabal of leadership where they kind of rule, I guess, like Eurasia area, if I'm not mistaken. But they're sort of these like organized criminals that are just kind of helping keep the Maker's aims true, and they're kind of ruling and oppressing the people. I think this ruling council of essentially, European-based mutants, I thought was really, really fascinating, and I like how these characters are utilized overall. Now, these are the 3 that are employing the scientists to basically try to experiment and use mutants or people with abilities to basically become the perfect weapon, and that's what we have here with the Ultimate Wolverine. And when they are doing these experimentations on him, he of course gets clad in adamantium, and he gets sort of programmed to do these missions, and he becomes the Winter Soldier, this kind of assassin-based agent. Now, the scientists do boast that he is the perfect weapon, but Colossus, Omega Red, and Magic all need to be persuaded. So we even have an issue where there's this mission where the top agents for them are all basically teamed up and trying to fight Wolverine, who's loosed in this forest setting, and Wolverine dispatches them appropriately. Along the way, we see the Winter Soldier as well, dispatched on missions to take out other mutant threats like Nightcrawler and Mystique, and at one point Gambit and Kitty Pryde, who appear to be an item in this universe. Now, his varying degrees of success with these mutants, I'll let you see throughout the pages of the book, but I will say what I liked is that there's these teasings or inklings that these mutants know who he is, or there's a past friendship or relationship or bond, and they thought he was dead, or they're not sure why he's acting the way he's acting. Ultimately, this culminates with Kitty Pryde kind of putting her hand through his head, and there's kind of electronics or things in there that get melded or offset by her abilities, and we have him having glimpses of memory, which confuse him. We also have a whole issue in this collection that's basically the Sabretooth versus Wolverine story. I really like this. We have Sabretooth as kind of an underground helper for a lot of these mutant kids. He owns a bar, and Wolverine strolls in one day, and a huge fight ensues. We get flashbacks where basically Wolverine made Sabretooth promise to kill him if he's ever taken control of, kind of in this fashion, and we just have this all-out brawl that, in my mind, was a ton of fun. There are, of course, various other twists and turns throughout this 6-issue arc, but I'm not speaking to every single plot point. Suffice it to say, we have the introduction of this Winter Soldier and him trying to scramble or put pieces back of who he is. We have flashbacks, like I said, these moments with other mutants, and ultimately everything culminates with him presumably getting his memory back with the help of Legion and this kind of underground resistance-based movement of mutants. We also saw an appearance of Jean Grey, the Phoenix, who is used as a kind of telepath to sort of keep him sedated by this program that turned him into a Winter Soldier. I thought that was a fascinating cameo as well. But like I said, everything in this volume basically leads up to the moment where presumably Logan gets his memory back, and he remembers and says aloud that he's the best there is at what he does. And that is really where this volume essentially leads us. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I thought it was one of the better titles of an already great new Marvel Ultimate Universe, and I will say I cannot wait to read what happens next. This was a fantastic foundational volume, and in many ways I feel like the whole thing reads almost as a prologue to what comes next. Now, I did want to speak a moment about the art in the collection. The first 4 issues are from Alessandro Cappucchio, which I really love that artist. I first became a fan of his work in the pages of Moon Knight by him and Jed MacKay. He has this really interesting kind of realistic style. It reminds me of anime in a way. There's some cool lighting visual effects to it that I just like. The eyes are really sharp and interesting, and I just think he was the perfect choice to do a new vision of Wolverine, and I was not disappointed. The art we get throughout issues 5 and 6 from Alex Lims, however, is a little bit different. It's a little more rounded and cartoony in many ways, but I still really enjoyed it. There is still a grit to it, and I thought it was overall well done. While I do prefer Cappuccio's art style, I thought both artists, again, just really helped sell the storytelling, and I was completely immersed. There was one issue I didn't really touch on earlier, maybe issue 4 or something like that, where we have this kind of overall narrative, and we have a wolf kind of fighting a bear, and this all done in Cappuccio's style I think is brilliant. I'm not sure if this was supposed to be in his head as Jean Grey was doing things or not, but whatever it was supposed to mean, I thought that this was also a really beautiful and ornate issue. At the back of the collection, we did have a variant cover art gallery, which you saw, along with some character models and other extras, which I love to see. And at the very back, we had more solicitation for some other new Marvel Ultimate titles. And that really brings this volume to a close. Once again, this is Ultimate Wolverine, Volume 1, The Winter Soldier. Again, this was a huge anticipated release for me, not only as a fan of this new Marvel Ultimate Universe, but also as a fan of Wolverine in general. The fact that on top of all of these factors, we also had art from Cappucchio, who I have, again, fallen in love with after his art on Moon Knight. This was just a win for me. I had a feeling it would be, and it really was even more enjoyable than I expected in many ways. Again, I feel like there's going to be a fullness of this arc in subsequent volumes, but I thought that this was a perfect introduction to this character, and honestly a great way to see a showcasing of a lot of the X-Men that have been absent from this universe. And now the grade. For successfully introducing and integrating this fan-favorite Marvel character into this broader new universe, the Comic Book Report is happy to give Ultimate Wolverine, Volume 1, The Winter Soldier, by Chris Condon, Alessandro Cappucchio, and Alex Lims, an A-. Marvel is still going full steam ahead on this universe, and I for one am here for it. Now as we're finishing out all of these Volume 1s and Collected Edition, I can't wait to reflect on this universe as a whole up to this point. I would love to hear in the comments though, what did you think of Ultimate Wolverine? Has this been a title you've been waiting for? Have you been caught up on single issues? Do you plan on giving it a read now after seeing this review? I'd love to hear all of that and more in the comment section. Also let me know if you'd be interested in seeing that Ultimate Universe Phase 1 retrospective video I pitched. I am hoping to do it, but I'd love to get some feedback. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like, those comments we talked about, and maybe share this video with a friend. Thanks everyone so much. Bye.